King's Landing had never been silent, not even in the dead of night. But that day, when the bell of the Red Keep tolled louder than ever before, the city held its breath. It wasn't war, it wasn't the death of a peasant or a noble or even a lord. No, it was treason. And the traitor was Queen Regent Cersei Lannister. The small folk couldn't believe it. The court whispered in shock. The nobles stared in disbelief. The same woman who ruled beside the boy king, who smirked in gold and silk, who whispered commands into his ear, was now stripped of her titles and dragged before the Iron Throne like a criminal. And the boy sitting on that throne, wearing a crown too big for his head, was her son, King Joffrey Baratheon. He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He didn't look away when she was thrown to her knees before him, her hands bound, her lips bloodied. "Queen Regent Cersei Lannister," Grand Maester Pycelle declared, his old voice shaking, "you have been accused of treason against the crown. The king has passed judgment." She looked up. Her eyes met Joffrey's, those same cruel, cold blue eyes that once begged her for comfort when he was just a boy. But now they held nothing. No fear, no guilt. No warmth, only pride. "You thought you could control me," Joffrey said loud enough for the hall to hear. "You whispered lies in my ear. You plotted behind my back. You defied your king. I protected you," she hissed, struggling against the ropes biting into her wrists. "You are here because of me." "No," he spat, standing up from the throne. "I am here in spite of you." There were gasps in the throne room. Even Tywin Lannister, standing to the side, didn't move. His face was stone, but his eyes were burning with a fire too dangerous to speak of. Tyrion stood frozen, wine halfway to his lips. He didn't drink. For once his mouth stayed shut. Cersei laughed, bitter and broken. "Do you even know what you're doing, you stupid boy?" Joffrey stepped down from the throne and walked to her. He crouched so close, their noses nearly touched. "I am the king," he whispered. "And you are a traitor," she spat in his face. The Kingsguard moved, but Joffrey raised his hand. He didn't wipe the spit. He stood and turned to Sir Meryn Trant. "Take her to the square. Execute her at dawn. Let the people see what happens to traitors, even queens." The hall erupted. Voices rose, some in horror, some in disbelief. Pycelle dropped his scroll. Lady Olenna gasped. Even the coldest lords looked shaken. Tywin stepped forward. "Your Grace, I urge you to reconsider." "No," Joffrey barked. "This is not your court, grandfather. This is my kingdom. She is my prisoner." "She is your mother," Tywin said, his voice hard as iron. "She was," Joffrey replied coldly. "But now she is nothing." That night the Red Keep was wrapped in a storm. Thunder growled over the black sky. Rain poured over the cobbled streets. Cersei sat in a damp cell beneath the castle, stripped of her jewels, dressed in rags, her hands still bound. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. But she didn't sleep either. In the corner of the cell someone moved. The shadows parted. Jaime stood there, soaked to the bone, rain dripping from his golden hair. His face was pale. His hand, or what was left of it, hung stiff at his side. "You came," she whispered. "I tried to stop him," Jaime said, kneeling by the bars. "He wouldn't listen." "He's your son, too." "No," Jaime said. "He's a monster." She looked away. "He's going to kill me," she said. "I won't let him. You can't stop him. I'll find a way." "No," she said, her voice hollow. "It's too late." They sat in silence, only the sound of water dripping and thunder rolling above. Then Cersei spoke, barely louder than a whisper. "Promise me one thing," Jaime leaned in. "Anything. When I die." "Make sure he dies too." At dawn the square was full. Rain still fell, but the people gathered anyway. The Queen Mother was led out, her blonde hair soaked, her feet bare, her eyes dry. The block waited. So did the sword. Joffrey stood above it all, watching from a balcony. He smiled as she was forced to kneel. He gave the signal. And just like that, the lioness was gone. But what Joffrey didn't know, what he couldn't see, was the fire he had just lit. A fire that would burn through his kingdom. A fire that would destroy everything. The rain had stopped, but the air in King's Landing was still thick, not with water, but with rage. After the execution, silence had swept the city as if everyone was waiting for something. A scream, a riot, or a war. None came, not yet. But something had changed. The people felt it. The court felt it. Even the rats in the Red Keep scurried quieter than usual. Inside the Tower of the Hand, Tywin Lannister sat alone. The fire crackled in the hearth, but his face was cold. He hadn't spoken to Joffrey since the execution. He hadn't looked at him either. When Kevin came to speak, Tywin raised a hand and said nothing. When Grand Maester Pycelle tried to offer comfort, Tywin dismissed him with a look. There was only one man he summoned now. Tyrion, he said when his youngest son entered. Tyrion walked in slowly, watching his father's expression like one watches a lion in a cage. "Father," he said carefully, "I see you haven't lit the court on fire yet." "That's promising." "Sit," Tywin ordered. Tyrion sat. Tywin stared into the fire. "He murdered his own mother." "He is your grandson," Tyrion said. "And your king." "No," Tywin said slowly, "he is not my king. He is a disease. A spoiled, violent, unstable boy who now wears a crown he's not fit to hold." Tyrion leaned forward. "And what do you plan to do about it?" Tywin turned to face him. "That's why you're here." Tyrion blinked. "Oh, you want me to kill him? That's adorable." "I want you to think," Tywin said, voice sharp. "There is a power vacuum now. The Queen Mother is dead. The people are uneasy. The Tyrells are watching. The Martells won't stay silent forever. And Daenerys Targaryen is gaining ground across the sea." Tyrion rubbed his chin. "So you need me to fix the mess your precious boy king made?" "I need you," Tywin said coldly, "to help me remove him." Tyrion stared. "Replace him with Tommen," Tywin continued. "A soft boy, yes, but pliable, controlled. But we must act fast, before Joffrey does something worse. Worse than killing his own mother?" Tyrion asked. "What's next? Burning the sept for fun?" "Don't give him ideas," Tywin muttered. Tyrion exhaled. "And what about Jaime?" Tywin looked away. "I sent him away. To Casterly Rock. He's not thinking clearly." Tyrion knew what that meant. Jaime had probably tried to strike Joffrey, or worse. And Tywin, the ever-pragmatic father, separated the lion before he tore into the cub. "Fine," Tyrion said. "I'll do it." Tywin raised an eyebrow. "That easy?" "Oh, I don't care about saving your crown," Tyrion said, standing. "But I do care about vengeance. He killed my sister. And as much as I hated her, she was still a Lannister." Meanwhile, Joffrey was enjoying his morning meal, as if he hadn't just executed his own mother. He tore into chicken with greasy fingers, licked honey from his thumb, and barked orders at servants like they were dogs. Margaery Tyrell sat across the table, watching him carefully. Her smile was perfect, her eyes warm, but her heart raced in her chest. He had done it. He had actually done it. She thought she could control him. She thought she could soften him, lead him gently, make him love her. But now she saw the truth. Joffrey wasn't just cruel. He was mad. He spoke with a smirk. "Did you see how she looked at me?" Like a sad little cat, all wet and broken. "She thought I wouldn't go through with it. You were very brave," Margaery said slowly. Joffrey grinned. "She always thought she was the queen. But now I'm free." "Yes," Margaery said, her voice honey-sweet. "Free." That night she sent a raven to Highgarden. With one sentence, "He cannot be saved. Begin preparations." In a dark alley near Flea Bottom, two cloaked figures met in the rain. One was a man with burned fingers and the smell of soot. The other, slim and quiet, handed him a pouch of gold. "Make it look like an accident," the cloaked figure said. The burned man grinned, missing half his teeth. "I'll give the Boy King a little surprise." The figure nodded. "If it fails, disappear. If it works, there's more gold waiting." But the Boy King wasn't sleeping. Joffrey had spies. Dozens of them. And when the gold chaser spoke to the wrong person in the wrong tavern, the crown knew. And when the guards stormed into the alley the next night, the burned man never saw the sword coming. He died gasping, his blood painting the stones red. Joffrey smiled when he heard. "Someone wants me dead," he whispered, laying in bed beside Margaery. "They fear me." "They should," she replied softly. His smile widened. "Let them come. I'm their king, but even a king can't fight shadows forever." And Joffrey's shadows were growing. The next few days passed like ghosts in the Red Keep. The halls were quiet, The servants moved slower, and even the courtiers whispered instead of speaking out loud. It wasn't just grief. It was fear. The execution of Cersei had done something far deeper than scare the nobles. It had shown them that King Joffrey Baratheon, first of his name, had no boundaries. If he could put his own mother to the sword, what mercy could any of them expect? In the shadows, the game had begun. Tywin Lannister met privately with the Master of Whisperers, Lord Varys, late at night in the Tower of the Hand. The moon hung high, pale and ghostly. "He's unraveling," Tywin said, pacing in silence. "He kills without thought, rules without sense, and now he believes himself invincible. That boy is a threat to the kingdom, and to our family." Varys tilted his head slightly, his soft hands folded before him. "Your Grace, many would agree, but none dare speak it." The small council trembles under his gaze. He has filled the room with his favorites, men without loyalty or reason. Even Sir Meryn Trant now follows blindly. "I don't need councilmen," Tywin said coldly. "I need a solution." Varys hesitated. "A quiet death would be difficult. He's surrounded at all hours. The Tyrell girl never leaves his side." Tywin narrowed his eyes. "Then we give him a reason to trust us again. We pretend, smile, bow, let him believe we've surrendered. And when the time is right, we strike." Varys finished softly. Elsewhere, in the lower levels of the Red Keep, Tyrion met with Bronn in secret. They sat in a dusty storeroom, surrounded by broken barrels and cobwebs. "The spider tells me the boy king nearly choked on a cherry last night," Tyrion said, sipping wine. "Too bad it wasn't poisoned," Bronn smirked. "If you want me to fix that mistake, say the word." Tyrion leaned back. "Not yet. We do this smart. Loud kings die loud deaths. We make his death quiet, a whisper, not a scream. So who takes the crown?" Tyrion's face darkened. "Torment." Bronn raised a brow. "The soft one." "Yes, soft is better than mad. And with Tywin behind him, he'll be safe. For a while." Bronn nodded. "All right. What's the plan?" Tyrion grinned. "We let the lion cub roar. The louder he gets, the more enemies he makes, and roar Joffrey did. Every day his orders grew stranger, harsher. He raised taxes on the poor, doubled the guard in the Red Keep, sent ravens to the north, threatening war if they didn't send tribute. He summoned lords from the Vale and Dorne and demanded their loyalty sealed with hostages. He had Ser Dontos executed for smiling too often. He banished Maester Qyburn for bringing bad dreams. Even the High Septon he accused of speaking with too much judgment. The court was breaking. The people were whispering. But Joffrey felt powerful. He would sit on the Iron Throne for hours, his legs dangling, his hand on the hilt of his sword. He liked the weight of it, the way people bowed too quickly when they entered. He liked the silence. Margaery watched it all. She played her part well, smiled at dinners, kissed his cheek in public, whispered sweet nothings in his ear. But inside she was already gone. She had written another raven to Olenna. "He will not last the year. Prepare the next move." One night, as thunder rolled once again over King's Landing, Jaime Lannister returned. He entered the Red Keep alone, wearing black instead of gold. His face was tight. His eyes were different, harder, colder. The guards let him pass. No one dared stop him. He found Tyrion waiting in his old chambers, holding a bottle of Dornish wine. "You're late," Tyrion said. "Mother's head has already rotted." Jaime didn't answer. He poured a drink and sat down. "He did it," Jaime said after a long silence. "Yes. I still can't believe it. Believe it. We both knew what he was capable of. We just didn't want to admit it. I should have killed him. You still can." Jaime looked at him. "Would you?" Tyrion paused. Then he looked down. "If I had to." There was another silence. Then Jaime whispered, "We're Lannisters. We protect our own." Tyrion looked up. "Then protect Tommen. Because Joffrey is going to burn this family to ash." Outside the castle, in the city below, something was changing. The people had begun to chant again, not for Joffrey, but in secret. "The king is mad. The king is mad." They didn't shout it. They whispered it. In corners, in brothels, in taverns, on fishing boats, in bread lines. Joffrey's name was no longer followed by "Long may he reign." It was followed by silence. And silence was dangerous, because silence was always the beginning of rebellion. The morning sun rose over King's Landing like a blood-stained blade, bright, sharp, and cold. Inside the Red Keep, the atmosphere had curdled into something poisonous. Servants moved like shadows, eyes cast down. Even the birds seemed to avoid the castle towers now, as if they too sensed something foul. King Joffrey Baratheon stood at the balcony of his chambers, arms folded behind his back. Below, the city moved quietly, too quietly. He frowned. There were fewer cheers lately, fewer banners. The people were beginning to forget their fear, and that was dangerous. He turned to Sir Meryn Trant, who stood at attention near the door. "Round up 5 beggars from Flea Bottom," Joffrey ordered. "Hang them outside the sept. Let the people remember who their king is." Meryn nodded, but even he looked unsure. "Begging your pardon, your grace. What crime shall we accuse them of?" Joffrey tilted his head. "Who said they needed to commit a crime?" Meryn bowed and left. Joffrey smiled to himself. Power, that's what this was. No mother to scold him, no grandfather to leash him. Just a crown, a throne, and a city beneath his boot. But behind that smile, there was something else, paranoia. It had crept into his mind like smoke through cracks in the stone. He saw whispers where there were none. He heard footsteps in empty corridors. And worst of all, he no longer trusted anyone. Not even Margaery. That night, after another royal feast where only half the lords showed up, Joffrey lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Margaery sat beside him, brushing her long brown hair, humming softly. "Tell me, my queen," he said suddenly. "Do you love me?" She paused just for a second, then smiled. "Of course I do." He turned his head slowly. "You didn't flinch when my mother died." She set the brush down. "I was shocked, my love, but I knew better than to show it. A queen must be composed." Joffrey sat up now, eyes narrowing. "I wonder what else you hide behind that composure." Margaery's heart beat faster, but her face stayed soft. "Only my love for you, my king. Nothing else." He stared at her for a long moment before slowly laying back down. She waited until his breathing softened. Then she turned her face away, eyes wide open, a tear slipping silently down her cheek. Far away in the tower where he was kept under protection, young Tommen sat in silence. He wasn't allowed to walk the gardens anymore. He wasn't allowed visitors, and the only people he saw were a pair of guards and Maester Pycelle, who came to check his health. But Tommen wasn't sick. He was a prisoner, and he knew it. Each day he stared out the narrow window, watching the pigeons fly freely over the city. His cat, Sir Pounce, curled at his feet, the only comfort he had left. He didn't cry anymore. Crying had stopped weeks ago. Then one night a knock came. Not from the door, but the wall. 3 soft taps, he froze. Then again, tap, tap, tap. Tommen got up, crept to the far side of the room, where a panel in the stone had loosened over time. He'd found it weeks ago, but never touched it. Now he pushed. The stone shifted slightly, and behind it, eyes. "Tommen!" a voice whispered. A girl's voice. "Who?" "It's me, Myrcella, his sister," he gasped. "You're alive?" "Yes," she said. "They told me you were sick, but I knew it was a lie. I bribed a servant. I had to see you." Tommen knelt. "Why am I locked away?" "Because Joffrey's afraid. You're his only threat now. If the people find out you're next in line, they'll stop fearing him." Tommen's hands trembled. "What do I do?" "Wait, be patient. Help is coming." Back in the throne room, Tywin met with Lady Olenna Tyrell behind closed doors. Their conversation was short and bitter. "He's spiraling," Tywin said, keeping his voice low. "He's a mad dog," Olenna replied. "And even mad dogs get put down. You would see your granddaughter a widow. I'd see her safe. And Joffrey is not safety." They both paused. "Your girl can control him no longer," Tywin muttered. "She's trying. But if we don't act soon, he'll kill her too." Tywin nodded. "Then we agree." Olenna stood. "We'll need a plan." And so the conspiracies thickened. Tyrion began funneling coin into the black cells, bribing guards, buying poisons, preparing a quiet coup. Jaime, still lurking in the shadows, gathered a few loyal knights to his side. Margaery sent hidden messages sewn into dresses. written on flower petals, burned after reading. And the people, they started murmuring louder, "The lion has turned on itself. He'll kill us all before winter. We need a new king." Fear had turned to anger, and anger was ready to explode. In his chambers, Joffrey stared into a mirror. He touched his face, his crown, his eyes. He saw power, but he also saw shadows behind him. They whispered, they waited, and he knew they were coming. "They think I don't see them," he muttered. He opened a drawer. Inside, a list, names Tywin, Tyrion, Margaery, Tommen, Jaime, Olenna, Varys, even Pycelle. He circled each one with a knife. "They'll all pay," he whispered. "I am the king, and I will not fall." But the knife trembled in his hand. Even monsters know when the end is near. The day began with a scream echoing through the Red Keep, a single sharp cry that made servants drop their trays and guards freeze in place. It came from the king's chambers. By the time the doors burst open, Joffrey was standing over a dead man, one of his own attendants, a boy no older than 16. His body lay twisted on the floor, throat slit, eyes wide with terror. Blood soaked the marble. "He tried to poison me," Joffrey shouted, voice shaking with rage. "He brought me wine, and it tasted wrong." The guards exchanged nervous glances. One tried to speak, but Joffrey slapped him across the face. "Do you doubt your king?" "No, your grace," the guard cried. Joffrey pointed his sword at the corpse. "Hang him anyway. Let the people see what happens to those who betray the crown." When the door shut and he was alone, Joffrey trembled, not with guilt, but with fear. The boy hadn't done anything, he knew it. But last night, he'd had another dream. His mother Cersei, standing at the end of his bed, eyes hollow, whispering his name. "They're coming for you, Joffrey. They'll do to you what you did to me." He hadn't slept since. Now he was convinced that everyone, the council, his family, even Margaery, was plotting against him. Later that afternoon, Margaery sat in the Queen's solar, her fingers tracing the edge of a sealed letter. The wax bore the sigil of House Tyrell. She had waited weeks for this. When she opened it, a single line was written inside in Olenna's elegant script: "The feast will be the end." Her heart pounded. The plan was in motion. A royal banquet had been arranged to celebrate peace and prosperity in the realm. A ridiculous excuse to make the people forget the recent executions. But it would be Joffrey's undoing. Margaery was to make sure he drank from the golden cup. Olenna's spies had done the rest. Still, her hands shook as she read the letter again. It was one thing to scheme, another to kill a king, her husband. But this was no husband. This was a monster wearing a crown. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, Tywin stood at the window, silent, while Tyrion poured wine. "He's losing his grip," Tyrion said. "He killed a boy this morning. Said he tried to poison him." Tywin didn't move. "And yet he still lives. Not for long, if what I've heard is true," Tyrion said carefully. "There's talk of a feast." Tywin's expression didn't change, but Tyrion noticed the faintest glint in his father's eyes. A dangerous sort of approval. "Do you know who's behind it?" Tywin asked. Tyrion smirked. "Does it matter?" "It matters who takes the blame," Tywin said. "When the boy dies, the kingdom will need order, not chaos. And who do you suggest wear the crown, then?" "Tommen," Tywin said. "Under my guidance." Tyrion raised his cup. "To family, then." Tywin didn't raise his. "To survival." That night, Jaime came to Tyrion's chambers. He looked older now, his eyes darker, the guilt of inaction hanging heavy on his shoulders. "Tywin knows," Jaime said quietly. Tyrion didn't look up from his parchment. "Knows what?" "That someone plans to kill Joffrey." Tyrion set down his quill. "And? He's not stopping it." "Of course he isn't. Father doesn't stop storms. He waits for them to wash the filth away." Jaime paced. "It's madness." "He's still my son." Tyrion gave a dry laugh. "He stopped being yours the moment he took Cersei's life." Jaime turned away. "I could still warn him." "You could," Tyrion said softly. "But would you?" Jaime didn't answer. The day of the feast arrived with clear skies and golden light. The great hall glittered with candles and jewels. Musicians played softly while nobles smiled too wide, speaking too sweetly. Joffrey entered last, dressed in red and gold, his crown shining. He grinned like a boy with a new toy, waving to the crowd as if they adored him. Margaery walked beside him, pale but poised, every step a test of control. "Tonight," Joffrey announced, "we celebrate peace in my reign." He laughed, a high, sharp sound that made even the musicians flinch. Cups were filled, toasts were made, and Joffrey drank deeply. Margaery watched each swallow, her heart in her throat. Then halfway through his speech he stopped. His voice caught. He coughed once, twice. The hall went quiet. Joffrey grabbed at his throat, gasping, choking. Wine spilled from his mouth as he fell to his knees. His face turned red, then purple. Margaery backed away. Tywin stood slowly. Tyrion froze, wineglass still in hand. Jaime rushed forward, shouting, "Get a healer!" But it was too late. Joffrey clawed at his neck, eyes bulging. His crown slipped off and clattered across the floor, spinning once before settling. The king of the Seven Kingdoms died gasping on the marble, eyes wide open, just like the boy he'd killed that morning. Silence filled the hall, and in that silence, a single truth echoed through every heart present. The Mad King's heir had fallen, and now the lions would turn on each other. The throne room hadn't been that quiet in years. Not after a death, not like this. Joffrey's body had been carried out under a blood-red sheet, his eyes still wide open, mouth frozen in a last, silent scream. Servants scrubbed the marble floor where he'd died, but no matter how hard they worked, the stain wouldn't vanish. They said the king had choked, said it was an accident, said it was a curse. But no one really believed that, not anymore. A king like Joffrey didn't die by chance. Tywin Lannister stood in front of the Iron Throne as if he had never left it. His face was carved from stone, unmoved even as chaos stirred around him. Lords were shouting, rumors were swirling, and the small council was already in a quiet panic. Tyrion stood to the side, wine in hand, watching it all unfold with calm detachment. "He finally shut up," he muttered to Varys. Varys didn't smile. "But his death will shout louder than he ever could. He deserved worse, perhaps. But now they'll come for someone." Tyrion raised an eyebrow. "And let me guess, that someone is me?" Varys didn't answer. He didn't need to. In her chambers, Margaery sat alone. The room was filled with roses, Tyrell colors, Tyrell scents, but none of it brought comfort. She had worn black to the aftermath ceremony. She had cried just enough to seem broken, but not enough to seem guilty. She played her part. She always had. Now Joffrey was dead. And the plan had worked. But why didn't it feel like a victory? She touched her necklace, the one Olenna had given her the day of the feast. She had removed the poison herself, hidden it in Joffrey's goblet. It had been so easy. But in the silence of her room, something inside her whispered, "You are a queen without a king. And that means nothing in this city." The door opened suddenly. Sir Loras stepped in, face grim. "They've arrested Tyrion," he said. "What?" "They're saying he poisoned the king." Margaery stood. "That's absurd. It doesn't matter," Loras said. "They want someone to blame." She looked out the window toward the Red Keep. Tyrion had been clever, but clever men didn't last long in King's Landing. And her own family. They were already pulling away from the fire. In the dungeons, Tyrion sat alone in his cell, staring at the stone wall. They had come for him not an hour after the feast. No trial, no warning, just steel and silence. He wasn't surprised. He just didn't expect to feel this tired. The door creaked open and Jaime entered, slipping past the guards like a ghost. His golden hand shone in the torchlight. Tyrion looked up. "Brother, come to gloat?" Jaime knelt by the bars. "They're going to kill you," Tyrion chuckled. "So it finally happens, the Lannister curse. You didn't do it, did you? Would it matter if I said no?" Jaime didn't respond. Then Tyrion whispered, "I think it was the queen." "Margaery?" "No," he said, staring hard at Jaime. "The real queen, Olenna." Jaime looked away. "Tell me, Jaime, are you going to let them hang me too? Or do I matter less than our sweet nephew?" Jaime stood slowly. "I'll do what I can." Tyrion smiled bitterly. "I'm counting on that." Meanwhile, in the Tower of the Hand, Tywin Lannister wrote letters. Dozens of them. Ravens flew in every direction, to the north, to the Reach, to the Eyrie. The king was dead. But the realm needed a new one. Tommen, young, malleable, weak, but with Tywin behind him he'd be enough. Kevin entered without knocking. The boy's death has stirred fear in every corner of the kingdom. Good, Tywin said without looking up. Fear brings obedience, and Tyrion? He'll stand trial. Then he'll hang. You don't believe he did it. Tywin's pen stopped. He looked up slowly. No, but I believe the people need a name. And he is convenient. That night Margaery visited Tommen. He was crying. Is it true? He asked. Did someone kill him? She knelt beside him, brushing his hair gently. It was an accident, my sweet. A cruel one. But now we must be strong. Are they going to make me king? Yes, she said. And I will help you. Just like I helped him. Tommen sniffled. He scared me. Margaery held him tighter. You'll never be like him. But as she hugged him, her eyes remained open, distant. Because deep down, she wasn't sure if that was true. The realm had lost a king, but it hadn't found peace. The Iron Throne sat empty, colder than ever, and in every corner of Westeros, the same question whispered like smoke. Who really killed the king? The Lannisters had turned inward. The Tyrells were playing their long game, and far across the sea, a girl with silver hair was still gathering fire and blood. The war wasn't over. It was just changing shape. The trial was held in the Great Hall, but it felt more like a funeral. Tyrion Lannister stood in chains before the throne, dressed in black, hair uncombed, eyes sharp, despite the shadows under them. The hall was full. Lords, ladies, guards, and small folk packed like sheep behind golden armor and lies. But no one spoke above a whisper, not with Tywin seated above them, silent and watchful like a vulture. At his right sat Prince Oberyn Martell, flicking dust from his cloak, amused more than outraged. At his left, Mace Tyrell, stiff and sweating, and on the throne itself, empty. Joffrey's crown now rested in a velvet-lined box. Tommen, too young for the weight of it, had been kept away from the proceedings. His fate, and the fate of the realm, would be decided before he ever wore the thing. Tyrion scanned the room. He saw Varys, face unreadable, Pycelle already nodding in false agreement with the accusations, Cersei's old ladies clutching pearls and pretending sorrow, and Margaery seated with her grandmother, avoiding his gaze. Then he saw her, Sansa. Or at least for a moment he thought he did, a flash of red hair, a face turned too quickly. But no, she was gone. He closed his eyes and exhaled. Let them hang me. At least I'll die knowing I wasn't the monster they painted me to be. The first to speak was Pycelle, of course. He poisoned the cup, the old man croaked, his own nephew. He'd spoken ill of the boy for years, jealousy, clear as daylight. Tyrion gave a dry chuckle. I've spoken ill of many people, Grandmaster. Shall we hang everyone I insulted? Tywin banged his cane. You will remain silent until called to speak. Next came the servants, the ones who swore they saw Tyrion near the wine, that he muttered something before Joffrey drank, that he smirked when the boy began choking. One even said he saw Tyrion whispering with a kitchen girl days before. She had since vanished. Then came Margaery. She walked slowly to the front, dressed in grey, eyes red from tears. She played the grieving widow well, too well. I don't know if he did it, she said softly. But I saw hate in his eyes. I saw joy when Joffrey fell. Tyrion's heart cracked, just a little. She had to say it. He knew that. She was protecting her house, her position, her survival. But it still stung. Thank you, Your Grace, Tywin said. She walked away. She never looked back. Later that night, Tyrion sat in his cell, the candle burning low. Jaime visited again, eyes heavy. They're going to convict me, Tyrion said. You see it, don't you? Jaime nodded. Unless what? You demand trial by combat. Tyrion gave a bitter laugh. Who would fight for me now? I would, Jaime said, his voice tight. Tyrion stared. You can't even hold a sword properly anymore. I'd still do it. No, Tyrion said. If I'm going to die, I'd rather not take you with me. Jaime leaned against the wall. Then let me help you escape. Tyrion looked up slowly. You'd risk that. I owe you for everything. Tyrion's voice softened. Even for killing our father? Jaime didn't flinch. Even for that. Meanwhile, Tywin sat with Lady Olenna in the gardens. The trial is going well, he said. The people believe what they're told. Of course they do, Olenna replied. They're sheep, but don't mistake silence for loyalty. Tywin narrowed his eyes. Is that a threat? A warning, Olenna said, plucking a rose. You remove the head too quickly, and the body panics. The Tyrells are watching this closely. You'd be wise to make Tommen's coronation swift and clean. It will be, Tywin said, as long as your house remains loyal. We're loyal to the realm, she said, and to whoever sits the throne next. They sat in silence. Somewhere nearby a raven cawed. A week later, Tommen was crowned. The ceremony was simple, quiet, rushed. No feasts, no tournaments, just a golden circlet placed upon a boy's head while the realm held its breath. Tommen blinked as the septon crowned him. He looked out at the crowd, nobles smiling too widely, lords kneeling with eyes full of calculation, and among them Margaery. She smiled. He smiled back. Innocent, too innocent. But Tywin watched it all from the shadows. He didn't smile. Because even with Joffrey gone, the throne didn't feel safer. It felt shakier. The alliances were holding. Barely. The Tyrells, the Martells, the Vale. They all watched each other with daggers behind their backs, and with Daenerys across the sea, gaining strength with dragons and freed armies, Westeros wasn't at peace. It was simply waiting for the next war. In the black cells, Tyrion sat awake in the dark. He heard footsteps, a key in the lock, the door creaked. Varys stepped inside. It's time, he whispered. Tyrion stood. Escape or death, Varys said. You choose. Tyrion nodded. Then lead the way. The dark tunnels beneath the Red Keep had once been dug for dragons, great terrible beasts that breathed fire and death. But tonight, they were shelter for a different kind of danger. A small man with broken chains and vengeance burning behind his eyes. Tyrion moved quickly behind Varys, his breath sharp, the stale air heavy with rot and secrets. The torches flickered low as they passed bones, rusted cages, and forgotten screams. No guards, Tyrion whispered. Not tonight, Varys replied. You have friends and enemies who think you're already lost. At the last turn, Varys stopped. This is where we part, he said. A ship waits at Blackwater Bay. It will take you east. Tyrion hesitated. East is far, far from revenge. Varys looked down. Revenge is a fire, my lord. It consumes as easily as it warms. Tyrion turned, ready to leave, but something pulled him back. No, he said suddenly. Not yet. Varys's eyes widened. Tyrion, I can't leave without saying goodbye. The Tower of the Hand was silent. Tywin Lannister's chambers were dimly lit by candlelight, the lion of House Lannister carved above his bed, cast in golden shadow. He was seated on the privy, the one place no one ever dared disturb him, except tonight. The door creaked open slowly. Tywin raised an eyebrow. Who's there? Tyrion stepped into view, crossbow in hand, hands shaking but steady enough to aim. Hello, father. Tywin didn't move, didn't flinch, just sighed. You've disgraced our name, he said calmly. You disgraced it first, Tyrion replied, when you put me on trial for a crime I didn't commit. I did what had to be done. No, Tyrion said, stepping forward. You did what you always do. You picked the family image over the family itself. Tywin's voice turned cold. You're not a son to me. You're a mistake I've endured. Tyrion blinked. That's the last lie you'll ever tell. He pulled the trigger. The sound was sickeningly soft, a thwack and a wet gasp. Tywin slumped forward. The lion of Casterly Rock was dead on the toilet. Tyrion dropped the crossbow. He turned and left without a word. At the docks, Varys waited longer than he should have. When Tyrion finally returned, he said nothing. His face was pale, his eyes unreadable. They boarded the ship in silence, and as the sails unfurled and the wind took them east, Varys whispered, "What have you done?" Tyrion didn't answer. He only looked back, one last time, at the lights of King's Landing, at the tower where he'd grown up unloved, at the palace where he'd nearly died, at the city that had cheered for his execution. Then he turned his face to the sea. News of Tywin's death arrived by morning. The Red Keep exploded in panic. The Hand of the King, gone, murdered in his own chamber. The killer, Tyrion Lannister, escaped missing, a fugitive. Cersei collapsed in her chambers when she heard. Her screams echoed through the halls. 2 children lost, her father gone. And now a brother to hate more than ever. "I will find him," she vowed, voice hoarse. "I will burn the world to find him." Margaery comforted Tommen, whose eyes filled with tears not for Tywin, but for the chaos he could now feel pressing in. "Will he come for me too?" he asked. "No," Margaery whispered, stroking his hair. "We'll keep you safe." But her eyes flicked toward the council chamber, already filled with vultures fighting for the dead lion's seat. The realm was bleeding again. In the gardens, Olenna Tyrell sat in silence, her hands folded. "Is it done?" she asked, a shadow behind her. The figure nodded. "Good," she said. "One less lion to threaten the flowers." That night, Jaime stood over his father's body, cold, stiff, silent. His face was unreadable, but inside he was torn. He had helped Tyrion escape, and Tyrion had killed their father. Was it justice? Was it madness? Was it simply fate? He didn't know any more. All he knew was that the Lannisters, once feared, once proud, were breaking from within. And all the gold in the world couldn't hold them together now. Far across the narrow sea, the winds shifted. In Meereen, Daenerys Targaryen stood on her balcony, her dragons circling high above the city. A raven had arrived. The king was dead. The Hand was dead. Chaos in the capital. She smiled just barely. "The lions are devouring themselves," she whispered, "and soon I will cross the water and finish the feast." The Iron Throne still stood, cold, sharp, waiting. Tommen sat upon it, feet barely touching the floor. A boy king, a pawn, and behind him Margaery, behind her Olenna, behind them all shadows. The crowned madman was dead, but his madness had only been a spark. Now Westeros would burn with the fire left behind.